Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are blessed again to have our dear brother Fadilat al-Sheikh Abdul Hamid Kishk with us from Ghana by way of Michigan. Alhamdulillah, he's left New York and is now settled in Michigan, in Detroit. Alhamdulillah. May Allah bless him and his family. He was generous enough to join us tonight to give us a reminder. And I know his time is very valuable, so Jazakumullah khair, Sheikhna. We really appreciate it.
Thank
We
you.
all miss you here. We enjoyed your visit last time, and we hope to see you again with Allah's permissions very soon, inshallah. I know, as I said, I know your time is limited, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor, inshallah, to give us a quick reminder. Barakallahu feek.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله ما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for blessing us with such a wonderful day. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. Today, as we all know, is a Tuesday which corresponds with the 12th day of Ramadan, 1441 years after the Hijrah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It also corresponds with the 5th of May 2020. We are still in this blessed month of Ramadan, and the Almighty Allah, in His own wisdom, has given us this time, as we said the last time that we met, as a spiritual workshop where we go in there to have an upgrade of the lives that we live in this dunya before we come to the akhirah. But today I just want us to look at some important issues in this excuse me. Okay, thank you. I just want us to look at a very, very important issue when it comes to the month of Ramadan. Some scholars have tried to give meaning to every letter in the word Ramadan. Ra, Mim, Dad, Alif, and Nun are the 5 letters from the Arabic language that form Ramadan. And some scholars are saying the Ra in Ramadan means Ar-Rahma, mercy. Mim, Maghfirah, forgiveness. Dad, Dhamanun bil Jannah, guarantee for entering Jannah. Alif, Amanu min al-Nar, that is protection from the hellfire. And then Nun, Nurun min Allah al-Aziz al-Ghaffar, a light from the Almighty Allah. So I want us to look at the first letter, Ar-Ra, which is Rahma, mercy in the month of Ramadan. The Almighty Allah, in the way that He has created us, He knew verily that we had shortcomings. He knew that from time to time, we will have to get some avenues through which we can return to Him. So He instituted for us some form of training, some activities that will serve as a connection between us and the Almighty Allah. So anytime we falter, anytime we stumble, anytime we do something that is wrong, He has given us these activities as a wake-up call so that we will rush back to the Almighty Allah. So Ramadan is also part of those activities that help us, to get closer to the Almighty Allah and then enjoy His rahmah. There is the hadith of Umar bin Khattab, where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was in front of some people, and then a woman was looking for her lost child. When she found that child, she held the child closer to her and started breastfeeding the child. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ asked the Sahaba, do you think this woman, by any chance, will throw her child into any chaos or calamity, or specifically hellfire? The Sahaba said, no way. The way she was desperate looking for the child and the way she brought the child closer to her, we don't think there is any way she's going to throw her child into the hellfire. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, you see that this woman is merciful to her child. The Almighty Allah is more merciful to His servants than this mercy that this woman is exhibiting to her child. The hadith of Abu Hurairah, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says that the Almighty Allah has mercy in 100 different forms. And then He sent us only 1%, one form of that mercy. That one form It's what human beings we sympathize with each other. It's what animals sympathize with each other. It's what moves the world. It is this 1% that moves the world, and that the Almighty Allah has reserved 99 of that with him in the hereafter. When we come to the Akhirah, he is going to give us all the 99 plus the one that he's given us here in the dunya. So the Almighty Allah, the way he has created us, and he really understood our shortcomings, and he knows how vulnerable we are, he created these opportunities for us to get closer to him. That is why he says, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. O you, those who have transgressed, oppressed yourselves, committed all forms of sin, لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Don't you ever lose the hope of getting the mercy of the Almighty Allah. Why? إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ جَمِيعًا. The Almighty Allah, he forgives every form of sin. إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Verily, he is the forgiving, the most merciful. So, those of us who, prior to the month of Ramadan, might not have been that, obedient to the Almighty Allah, might not have been worshiping regularly, this month of Ramadan is an opportunity for us to return back to the Almighty Allah. The mercies that we have in this month of Ramadan, for me, the biggest one is what we call tawa'iyatun nafs, aw taysir adai al-ibadat, where the soul is tampered with, the soul has been tamed. We now go towards ibadah with ease. Before the month of Ramadan, we had optional forms of fasting. The 3 days fasting every month, the 13th, 14th, 15th of the Islamic calendar. It was a form of fasting. But how many people were able to observe it regularly? We had Mondays and Thursdays fasting. How many people were observing it regularly? We had Ashura and Tasua. How many people were observing it regularly? We had Yom Arafah, fasting of Yom Arafah. How many people were regularly doing it? But then we come to the month of Ramadan, 29 and 30 days straightforward, but then we don't feel any laziness. We don't feel any reluctance. We don't feel any hesitance. We worship the Almighty Allah the way he must be worshipped. It is the mercy of the Almighty Allah that is being exhibited. We come into the month of Ramadan with this form of mercy. We come into the month of Ramadan with this form of, obedience of the soul. Before the month of Ramadan, how often do we open the Quran to read? Some of us in these first 12 days might have read the Quran cover to cover about 2 or 3 times at least. How many times before the month of Ramadan or outside the month of Ramadan were we able to say 2 rakats of optional prayer at night? But now in the month of Ramadan, we do at least 8 or 10 rakats. If the Almighty Allah was to leave us like that, we human beings, to go about this Ramadan through our own, volition, do you think we will be able to commit this time and effort and energy the way we are doing now? I doubt so. So the first mercy that I want us to look at in this month of Ramadan is what we call tawa'iyatun nafs, what the soul has been made easy for. And then it also brings us to another point, which is we might have brothers or sisters or friends or colleagues or neighbors who, prior to the month of Ramadan, might not have been astute Muslims the way they must be. But then in this month of Ramadan, they've shown form. In this month of Ramadan, they've shown integrity. In this month of Ramadan, they've come closer to the Almighty Allah. Ours is to encourage them. Ours is to advise them. Ours is to stimulate them for them to continue. Instead of mocking them, instead of calling them Ramadan Muslims, ours is to look at them with pity and ease so that they will be able to continue to worship the Almighty Allah. We don't have any guarantee. The fact that we might be praying regularly, the fact that we might be donning the hijab the way it must be done, the fact that we might be doing all these good things, it is not a guarantee that we are going to end up in that. Those people were tried, they failed. We don't have any guarantee that we might not be tested in a similar fashion. So let's take our time in trying to speak to these people. Let's look at them the way we want the Almighty Allah to look at us. and then let's try as much as possible to accommodate them and find, that space for them to be able to fit in the community is very, very important. I always say this: if your brother is in a ditch, if you can't extend your hand to pull him out, don't push him further. So those people who are our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, that are family members who before the month of Ramadan might not have been that good Muslims, but then in the month of Ramadan, they change all of a sudden. Wallahi, you don't know that maybe they had true repentance between them and the Almighty Allah, and the Almighty Allah looks at them with more respect than he looks at us. We all know of the hadith of the woman who was brought for committing adultery and then she was stoned. And then her blood spilled upon some of the Sahaba, and then they complained, what is this? Dirty blood. The Prophet Muhammad said, no, that woman had repented, a form of repentance. If it was distributed to the people of Medina, it would be suffice for them. It will be enough for them. We all know of the hadith of the Sahabi who used to drink. He would drink alcohol, he will be punished. He would drink alcohol, he will be punished. The Sahaba, some of them said words about him. What kind of person are you? You always drink, you be punished, you also drink. Oh, may the Almighty Allah curse you. The Prophet Muhammad said, La tu'inu shaytana ala akhikum. Don't side with shaitan over your brother. Don't help shaitan over your brother. He is struggling. The Prophet Muhammad, I know that he loves Allah and the Messenger. So let's try as much as possible to find this accommodation for the brothers and sisters that hitherto before the month of Ramadan, they might not have been praying regularly, they might not have been observing Islam the way it's supposed to be done. But then in this month of Ramadan, they've realized the need to also fast. They've realized the need to pray regularly. They've realized the need to do nawafil. What we can do is encourage them more rather than call them names. That is one. Another mercy in the month of Ramadan that the Almighty Allah has given us is Fatuh Abwab al-Jinan, Abwab al-Niran, Tasir al-Shayateen, which is that the doors of Jannah has been opened and then the doors of Jahannam has been closed. What it means is that the Almighty Allah is motivating us. He's telling us that forget about the punishment. I've closed the jails. I've opened this Jannah. Yours is to focus now. You don't have any obstacle now. You don't have any obstruction now. You don't have anything that will distract you. Yours is to focus towards Jannah. Yours is to remain focused. Yours is to remain motivated. That is what the Rahma of this month is. The doors of Jannah are open. The doors of Jahannam have been closed. And then the evil shayateen have been locked up. The scholars in trying to explain to us what it means that the shayateen has been locked. It means they are saying that the marada, the evil ones amongst them, the ones who are very, very evil and stubborn, they are the ones that have been tied because they are the ones that whisper evil to you. So long as the ones who whisper evil have been tied down, it means that you have the opportunity, you have the chance to continue to do your ibadah without any hindrance. So if you have this opportunity, there is no hindrance, there is nobody, beating you, there is nobody, pushing you away from the worship of the Almighty Allah. And that also the Jannah has been opened, that it means that you must focus in this month of Ramadan, and then you don't have it in any other month except the month of Ramadan. Another mercy is Fathu Abwab al-Tawbah. The doors of Tawbah has been opened. As we said in our analogy the last time that we went, get the engine oil of your Iman changed. What it means is that Tajdeed al-Iman, increase of Iman, increase of Tawbah. Make sure you return to the Almighty Allah. Do sincere Tawbah. None of us is free from committing sin even in the month of Ramadan. None of us. We might commit it consciously or unconsciously, but then in the month of Ramadan, the doors of forgiveness have been opened wide for us. Ours is to take our time to ask forgiveness from the Almighty Allah. It's like going to the court and then the judge is in a good mood. If you take your time and then you give your case very, very well, I know your case will be acquitted and discharged. So the Almighty Allah in this month of Ramadan has given us all these signs that He is in a good mood, He's closed Jahannama, He's open Hellfire, He's open Jannah. When I say He's in a good mood, it's metaphorical, because the Aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah is very, very, mindful or careful when it comes to Asma or Sifat, attributing to Allah what He has attributed Himself. I'm just making an analogy on that. Thank you very much. Let's take our time in seeking forgiveness from the Almighty Allah. Let's give another analogy here again, which is if you are summoned to court, and then you go and stand in front of the judge, and then the judge gives you an opportunity to explain your case. I know you will take your time and choose your words carefully. Your Honor, with all due respect, Your Honor, it's a mistake. Actually, I didn't see it is a no parking area. I didn't see it's a no speeding area. I didn't see the sign. Or I had a sick person in the car. I've called the ambulances. They were not coming in on time. So to save the person, I had to put them in my car and then try to rush them to the hospital. That is why I was speeding above the limit. So you take your time and then you explain. And this is a fellow human being like you. But then you're trying to convince the person that what you've done, even though you accept that you've done wrong, you are trying to explain so that the person will reason with you and understand where you are coming from. So it means that when you wrong the Almighty Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, your own creator, and then you come and stand in front of Him, you want to seek forgiveness, which choice of words are you going to use? Are you going to take your time or you're going to rush through? It's so painful that we understand the importance of istighfar, but then when we come to do istighfar, we don't take our time. And then we are gone. In saying la ilaha illallah, you end up saying la 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 la. Then you get up and you go, Subhanallah, and then you get up and you go. So at the end of the day, because you didn't do it well, it doesn't have any spiritual effect in you because you didn't take your time and do it well. The problem is that we don't understand tawbah, we don't understand istighfar. When you say astaghfirullah, you are asking the Almighty Allah three things. Izharul jamil, you are asking the Almighty Allah to expose the good part of you to people so that people will only know you of doing good. Wasatrul qabih, and then you are asking the Almighty Allah to hide your evil, the bad side of you. You are asking the Almighty Allah to cover it up. وَالتَّجَاوُزُ عَنْهَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, and that the Almighty Allah should pardon you on the day of Qiyamah for those evil things that you've done. These are the three things that you are asking Allah when you say istighfar. Why is that you don't take your time? Take your time, my brother and sister. When you're doing istighfar, take your time. Same way, when you end up in the courtroom, you take your time to explain to the judge what is going on. I believe you have to also take your time when you explain to the Almighty Allah what happened when you are seeking for forgiveness. And then in this month, the doors of forgiveness have been opened too. Even though they are open all the time, this time around, it's in a much bigger and more grand way. Another mercy in this month of Ramadan. We are speaking solely about the mercies in the month of Ramadan. مُضَاعَفَةُ أُجُورِ الصَّائِمِينَ, which is the doubling, the multiplying of the good deeds of the person who is fasting. And the hadith that we know of, where the Almighty Allah tells us in Hadith al-Qudsi, كُلُّ عَمَلِ ابْنِ آدَمْ لَهُ إِلَّا الصَّوْمِ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. Every good deed that the son of Adam does is for him, except fasting, because fasting is mine, and I, the Almighty Allah, am the only one who knows the reward of the fasting person. Imam al-Nawawi, in explaining this hadith, says the reason why the Almighty Allah says fasting is for him is because he is the only one who knows the reward of the fasting person. Because fasting is a secret contract between you and the Almighty Allah. Nobody knows whether you are fasting or not except the Almighty Allah, not even your spouse. You can be with your spouse throughout the day in partial lockdown or stay home order. You can enter the washroom and drink a whole kettle of water, clean your mouth and come back into the living room and say, oh, honey, today the fasting has been very, very difficult for me. not knowing you've entered the room, the washroom, and then you've drank water, and then you are out. So even your spouse will not be able to know exactly whether you are fasting or not. It is only the Almighty Allah who knows you are fasting. So Imam al-Nawawi says that is one sign of it. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali says that the fasting is the only form of worship that showing off Riyah doesn't enter it. If you are praying Salat, there is a possibility that Riyah might enter. If you are doing Sadaqah, there is the possibility that Riyah might enter. If you are doing Hajj, there is a possibility that Riyah might enter. But then fasting is the only form of ibadah that is being protected from Riyah. Because in the month of Ramadan, we are all fasting and nobody knows you are fasting. Because nobody has any label written on their forehead that you are hungry or you are fasting. But then when you come to pray, Allahu Akbar, people see that you are praying. And I say that part of the hikmah or wisdom in the Almighty Allah saying that fasting is for him and that he's the only one who knows the virtue or the reward of the fasting person is that here in the eastern, East Coast, right? East Coast, we fast, I think, 12 to 14 hours. That's that's how long we fast. You go to Norway, they are fasting about 20 hours. You go to West Africa, they are fasting about 12 hours. So that is why the standard of the reward is not the same. Because if the standard was the same, those who are fasting 12 hours will cheat those of us who are fasting 14 hours, in quotes, and those who are fasting 21 hours. So because of these differences, it has now become more apparent to us that fasting is for the Almighty Allah, and then he's the only one who, rewards the fasting person. Another mercy in the month of Ramadan is that you find out that human beings, we are more merciful to each other in this month of Ramadan than any other month. For example, you find out that in this month of Ramadan, people do more sadaqah. People help more. The part of the world where I'm coming from, it's very, very difficult to meet these rich people outside the month of Ramadan. But in the month of Ramadan, they open their homes, they feed people, they organize mass iftars in their homes, they sit with the poor people, you sit with him, next to him, big man, politician, rich man, you get access to him in the month of Ramadan easily. You eat from the same bowl with him. There is this mercy in the heart of this well-to-do people towards the poor people, when hitherto before the month of Ramadan, something like that didn't exist. Even in this Western world, in the month of Ramadan, you have that circumstances where some people, big people, illustrious people in the community, it's very difficult to meet them. But in the month of Ramadan, when you have this general iftar in the masajid, you get all these community members, all the well-to-do people coming, and then you get to sit next to them and even present to them whatever you have to present to them, whether help you want or whatever. And in the month of Ramadan, they are very, very, very quick in helping. So you find out that in the month of Ramadan, because of the Rahma, because of the mercy that is being sent from the Almighty Allah to all of us, you find out that we are very, very merciful to each other. We are very, very, very cool to each other. Even the scholars in the fatwa they give in the month of Ramadan, you find out that it's much, much, more merciful than outside the month of Ramadan. In the month of Ramadan, you find out our scholars talk more of forgiveness, they talk more of Jannah, they talk more of getting closer to Allah than they talk about, punishment, adab, hellfire. So they speak less of punishment in the month of Ramadan, and they speak more of doing good, they speak more of encouraging, of doing good, they speak more of Jannah, they speak more and more of that. Finally, in the month of Ramadan, these mercies has brought all of us together. Muslims, irrespective of our differences, irrespective of where we are coming from, irrespective of our sectorial differences, we all agree that we are in the month of Ramadan, and then we are all fasting. Imam Chan, I think we've taken much time of the people. We're supposed to talk about 10, 15 minutes. We've now reached 20 minutes. So I return the microphone back to you so that you continue with your master of ceremony duties. Thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khair, Sidi. Barakallahu feekum. Now, alhamdulillah, we benefit from you, so I'm very happy to let you go as long as you want, yani, alhamdulillah. So, well, yeah, may Allah accept from us and from you. May Allah bless you and your family and the community there in Detroit, who's blessed to have you there, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, we'll see you very soon. And
Inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair. Everyone who sees this, inshallah, please keep the Shaykh and his family and his community in your du'as as well. Jazakumullah khair. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.